Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, we talk about so many ways that can make an angler a better angler. And one of those things that I've said over and over again is one of the first things that we have to contend with is finding where the fish are. If you're not fishing in water that holds fish, you're never going to catch a thing. And in today's technologically oriented world, there's graphs and devices that allow fishermen that have these an ability to find the fish so readily. But then what happens? You know, I had a lot of people tell me recently that they had found schools, big schools of smallmouth bass, and a lot of them are really big bass. And yet when they were in the tournament and fishing and went to these locations, the fish were still there, but they wouldn't bite. And a lot of times we take for granted, we think, okay, if we're in the right area and the fish are there, they're going to bite. Well, they don't. And what happened to a lot of these fishermen is they would get in these areas and they would present their baits, but only the small fish were biting. And I heard this over and over. We could see the big fish there, but they wouldn't bite. One of the really top anglers that won this, and I'll talk about this in another report, but he said his technique was if he found the area, then he wouldn't be loyal to any one technique that had worked for him before. He'd try it. And if it didn't work and he could see all the fish there, but they weren't hitting, then he would switch to another technique. And a lot of times people don't do this because the preference of the fish can constantly be changing. And we take for granted a lot of times that certain things that we've heard for years work are always going to work, but they might not. And so I think this is an important thing to remember, that finding the fish is only the first step in fishing. And it's become so much more apparent to me as I observe and listen to other fishermen that make their whole living being out there on the water. And I found this fantastically interesting. I had one guy that came one of the mornings and he said, I found this school. There was over 100 huge smallmouth in the school. And I can't wait till tomorrow because I think with the bright sun that they're going to hit. Well, the next day he comes in, he had one big fish. And he told me, he said, that's the only one I could get to bite. I could see them all down there in the graph, or maybe the water was so clear he could see them, but they wouldn't hit. So remember, finding the fish is only the first step. And there's so many other things that are about that really make a difference in that kind of fishing. And so remember, you've got to employ all your wits, and you've got to be able to, once you find the fish, figure out what they're hitting that day. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.